pure fact is we're going to go into a downturn, and all businesses will be affected by that, because you probably sell to people, and every person that you deal with is in different sectors, and they may have lost jobs, they may have had overtime stopped, they might be cutting back, whatever it is. So people now start to change the way they buy stuff, even if it's a mortgage, financial services, whatever it is. And the title of this particular video, nice little phrase for it, I call this required. There you go. Required, not desired. So a bit of a sort of a rhyming thing going on there. And that's the concept of what you take away really with you today. Desired versus required. What's the difference? Well, required is something that somebody needs. Desired is something that they want. So we used to call this needs and wants back in the day, and they still are relevant. So where's the issue here? Well, first of all, in a downturn, an economic downturn, hard economy, the Americans call it, people don't have as much money in their pockets as they used to, and therefore they're going to be much more canny as to where they spend it. Not everybody, get it totally. Talked to my son at the weekend. He works for a software company that involves itself in cyber kind of anti-hacking software. His business is booming and will do during the recession. If you're in healthcare, you'll be booming. IT, you'll be booming. All sorts of different places. Public sector tends to do okay. There are a lot of people with a lot of money in their pockets, but a vast majority won't. In those situations, people therefore are more choosy what they buy. They tend to steer more to things that are required, not desired. So take your average food shop. People go down to Tesco's or Aldi, whatever it is, and they'll start buying own brand goods now. They might omit the Ben & Jerry's ice cream and go for the Tesco's own, because they require ice cream, but they're going to have the lowest or cheapest version rather than the expensive one. So luxury goods tend to hit badly in recessions. Leisure choices, people won't go out so much for restaurants. They'll have more takeouts rather than going into a restaurant. They might get Sky Movies rather than go to the cinema. So different examples there. The BT Sport thing, watched Man United get beaten last night on BT Sport. Now, I used to be a Gloucester rugby season ticket holder. I don't anymore. I subscribe to BT Sport, it's cheaper. So I can still watch Gloucester rugby play live in the comfort of my big telly, but I don't have a season ticket. And people have things called direct debit purges. They go through their direct debits, don't they? They purge the things they don't need, or they should anyway. And things that are not required, in other words, the desired things, get killed, and they delete the direct debit. So, okay, we can understand that. So where's the issue here for mortgage advisors? Well, the issue is quite clear. When you're selling your products and services, and I say selling, then you've got to make your product become required, not desired. Or you want to segue more to required advice as opposed to desired advice. Now, I've moved my business model in the last 3 years. Since we had the Brexit vote in 2016, I knew we were going to get a recession. Therefore, I've been moving my business model accordingly. And I've done three things. First of all, I purged my direct debits, started doing it 3 years ago. Business direct debits, we pay for all sorts of rubbish we don't need, so I've been purging those quite considerably. Secondly, I've changed my business model, so I deliver via this kit now rather than jump in a car and go off some room somewhere delivering training, which is very expensive. So my training can be a lot cheaper now, or more cost effective if you like, by delivering it via this mechanism. And I don't just sit in front of a camera laptop, with your nostrils showing. I don't do any of that with slides in the background. No, we've got proper basement here with screens and lights and cameras everywhere, different angles and all those sort of things. Got loads of that stuff going on. That's number two. Number three is I've kind of moved my business area to more required delivery as opposed to desired. I do a lot of sales training. Really believe in sales training. Do a lot of sales and coaching of managers. That's something helping people to be better coaches, better sales managers, better salespeople. Do a lot of that. But in downturn, guess what? Businesses don't want that anymore because that's desired, or they think it is anyway. It's actually required, but they don't see it like that. So that kind of training is going to go flat. Didn't last recession, we'll do this one too. So I've moved much of my delivery now to required things, like examination support, for example, for CMAPs, CF6s, ER1s, equity release. I've moved into the advanced mortgage paper delivery in all those areas now, using technology, because people require that. They're doing an exam or they're having some kind of authorization. They have to have it. Therefore, I can deliver it. I'm also doing quite a bit of sales training still and supervisory training, that sort of thing, but not as much because clients won't necessarily buy that. So that's how I've segued my business. What have you done? Here's some ideas for you. Here's some ideas for you as a mortgage broker. First of all, focus on the remortgage business. Now, remortgages are required because it reduces the percentage rate for people. Rates are rock bottom, will be for a few more years. So remortgage business is required, and people will therefore go for that. They will therefore buy that because they need to do it as well. On the same one as well, you've got fixed rates ending as well. So fixed rate mortgages come to an end. You need to move that to another product, or remortgage probably is the best thing for you. Again, that's required to reduce rates. It certainly has a need for people to do that to be able to survive dramatically. Equity release is a market area which is not a luxury. It's needed for people that need money for whatever reason. Getting equity release gives them the money and they can do what they want to do. It's not like a sort of a nice to have. It's not a desired area as well, which people will probably ignore. Desired areas are those where people want to scale up to the next property. First, second time buyer bought a property. Let's move to a bigger house, darling, shall we? Let's get a bigger garden. That's desired. It's not required. Okay, people are doing it now, a bit of a backlog of sales. But when money is tight, people ain't going to do that. Or we'll stick here for a couple of more years, darling, shall we? We won't move yet until 2 years' time when you're more secure at work. That's the kind of thing people do. So that kind of business won't be happening so much. So this stuff, though, will have a need for it as well. Protection. Make sure that you ensure that your customer sees protection as a need, effectively, as a required thing. You have to turn it into something that they desire. Of course you do. You have to make sure they want it and desire it, but they have to make sure that it's required. It becomes almost essential to their daily living. Have a discussion around what might happen if, without obviously scaring people, but make them really feel that the income protection, the life protection, whatever protection you're looking at doing, is part of their DNA. They have to have it. It's required. If they don't have it, it's doom and gloom. Really make sure they know that it's a required thing. Wills, lasting power of attorney. These things, again, you can have a conversation with the customer. Make sure they appreciate why they need it. What's the rationale for using it? When you're selling, use more logic now as well. Logical selling is much more appropriate in a downturn because it makes people see that it's required. People used to say that you sell on emotion, don't you, and justify on logic. You do sell on emotion, but not in a recession. In a recession, you have to sell on logic, make people require things. So there's a few ideas there for you. The biggest danger you've got, though, when trying to sell any of these things, and I'll put it down here for you, so you can see that, is what we call the status quo. Now, Status Quo is not a rock band with Rick Parfitt. He died, didn't he, last year? It's people will want just to keep what they got. They don't want to change. They don't want to do any change whatsoever. It's called status quo. So that's your biggest enemy. You're talking to a client about maybe buying a house, moving on upwards. They'll rather stay put. You talk to a customer about remortgaging, and their rates that they're going to save is not an awful lot of money, so they'll probably just stay where they are. Status quo is the biggest danger. So you've got to get around that. And the best way to get around that is what Braceford used to call incremental gains. Now, my partner's very good at this with me, Shelley. She'll get me to make changes, but she won't do it all at once. She gives me little changes that all add up to the big change at the end. So suddenly I think, hold on, what's happened here? I've agreed to this, but she's done it in little steps. And that's what you need to do when selling. Let's say a rolling stone gathers no moss, but a rolling stone has to start by giving it a little push, and it starts to get going on its own. So lots of little steps. Learn to create momentum. So, for example, if you're looking to sell some protection and some wills and stuff like that to your customer, don't just have a great big meeting where you try and flog it to them. That's just ridiculous. Do it in steps. Sow the seed early on in your mortgage interview. Tell them that you're going to talk to them later because there's some really big issues here. Get them used to that. Then maybe have a 10-minute Zoom call to talk about what they've got, and maybe sort of sow the seed a bit more. And then later do it again and again and again. Little changes is how you get people out of status quo. Or of course you buy download their CDs or whatever it is you want to do, or Spotify them as well. Direct debit purges as well. People will do that, so be careful that you sell things that they know is required, because they will purge the direct debit later. And if you're selling protection, you get commission paid. You're going to have that commission clawed back, so be careful you don't call into that one. And that's what people are about. They're about saving money. They're about required, not desired. That's why Martin Lewis is money saving expert. He kicked that off in the early noughties when we had a bit of a downturn. And of course 2007, 8, 9, his money savings expert website just exponential growth, and he became a household name after that because he was helping people save money. You'll see that on the telly, how to save money here, how to upcycle your clothes. You'll see a ton of that now with people looking to keep back the pennies. So remember, when advising customers, make sure you sell required things, not desired things, or make your product a required necessity, not something they can do without. That's the key to getting through downturn. Hope that's good.